Hello and welcome once again to the bike show that this week features some old bikes and some new bikes. Let's start with the new bikes.
A couple of weeks ago I rode Harley-Davidson's new Pan America, their new adventure bike. Actually much like this one. In fact, this is the exact one that I rode, and it's possible I said a few very nice things about it. In fact, I might have also said that it could compete with the current crop of adventure motorcycles. And Matt, who's a nice caring man and understands poetic license, said, well, get some of the others and put up against it. So yeah, anyway, so here we have what many would call the benchmark of adventure motorcycles. This is the R1250 GS, this one in triple black colors. If you can find the three blacks, go for it. But anyway, I say benchmark simply because they're everywhere. In fact, somewhere now, wherever you are, I bet there's one of these nearby. There's a GS somewhere. And for that reason, people would call it the benchmark. However, there are a few people who might be jumping up and down saying, no, this is not the benchmark, because they're more interested in one of these. While you might find the GS outside an office block, you'll probably find the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S outside your local gym. The numbers on this thing is absolutely insane. They say ready to race, and they live by their motto, ready to race. So that's the opposition. I think this Harley might have its work cut out for it. And we start with the GS, the obvious choice. This bike has earned itself its own big word, ubiquitous. As is traditional, the GS has a boxer twin motor pushing a respectable 136 horsepower and a monstrous 143 newton meters of torque. There's a reason GSs do so well. They do everything well, and they do everything easily. It's not difficult to ride this motorcycle, it's not. It just has so much torque. Any gear you want, you just whoop, open the throttle, torque picks you up. In fact, it's got 6 gears. I don't know why it's got 6 gears. You need 3, if that. That boxer motor also lowers the center of gravity, which is a good thing. And just the way it handles, the way it feels, everything, it just comes so kind of naturally. But having that boxer motor also has its share of problems. So, I mean, this bike is huge. I mean, actual physical dimensions, massive. And that's going to become a problem when you're trying to park it or go through traffic or any tight spots. That's going to be a problem. When you're up and running, you really don't feel it. The other problem is that everybody has one of these, and everywhere you go, you'll see one of these. Because of that, it's not really special. It's like people will see, oh look, here comes a motorbike, and like, oh, okay, it's just a GS. I know, like, people don't think about that kind of thing, but, you know, it's kind of nice to feel special.
Excuse me, I have to interrupt here because I want to share a message from this video sponsor, and it's one worth listening to for only a minute of your time because it might just change your life. I don't say that lightly, but rather from experience, because it has changed our lives. My wife in particular, who now edits the show thanks to the expertise she learned via Skillshare. Wanting to change her career a couple of years ago from finance to something more rewarding, but not sure how to go about it, Skillshare offered her a fantastic range of options to explore her creative side. Everything from writing and photography through things like music and fine art, all the way to graphic design and animation. Once Jax had joined, become a member and sampled some of the classes, all of which she found inspiring, she settled on video editing with Ali Saunders, but hasn't yet explored what Skillshare has to offer about being in front of the camera, which is why I'm here doing the talking about her experience. We now work and travel together, and it has been made possible by Skillshare and their online learning community that is designed to help you better use your creative side, which, by the way, we all have. You don't have to want to do anything as drastic as Jax and change the course of your life. It's a wonderful resource and partner for those who are keen hobbyists or for people who just want to explore their creative side a little more with the help of a community of creatives that feels exactly like you do. Okay, this is now more than a minute, but we feel strongly about Skillshare. They're always adding new classes and there are no ads, and obviously it's a resource that you can take with you wherever your travels might take you. So help yourself and help us at the same time by taking a look. The first 1,000 Bike Show subscribers using the link in the description below will receive a month's free trial of Skillshare. Do it! Explore the potential within yourself and this wonderful online community. We did, and we love it.
And with that, we get ready to race with the KTM 1290 Super Adventure S. I think it's possible that I might have said that I quite liked this bike in the past. Alright. The 1301cc V-twin motor pushes 138 Nm of torque. That's less than the BMW, but it also pushes 160 horsepower, and that's a lot more. But there's a lot of things that are more on the KTM. But you know, it's more than just speed. I mean, let's play a game of top trumps. Horsepower. The BMW's 136, the Harley's 150, this 160. Capacity. The Harley's 1252, BMW's 1254, this 1301. Suspension travel, this. Weight, this. Fuel tank capacity, this. Even price, I mean the BMW, these are base prices. The BMW is 322,000 Rand. In base, the Harley's 310, this is 299. Through all the major categories, the major specs, this wins. Also, the KTM is the only one out of the three to have a frickin' laser on its head, guiding the adaptive cruise control. However, nothing is ever perfect, including the KTM. If there are one or two problems, the seat is rather hard. I think it's because all the people at the KTM factory ride bicycles, so they don't mind a seat made out of marble. Also, the ready to race thing, okay? If you buy one of these, people expect you to be a really good rider. Like, pull away from robots pulling wheelies and sideways in every corner. And if you can't do that, then it's a hell of an expectation to live up to. And then there's the new kid, the Harley-Davidson Pan America. Yeah, this is a very brave market for Harley-Davidson to get into. I mean, considering all the competition out there and how strongly contested it is and how experienced they all are. Some would call the move stupid. However, as we have alluded to previously, they've done a rather good job of it. It's powered by the new Revolution Max motor, a liquid-cooled 1252cc V-twin, pushing a somewhat respectable 150 horsepower and 128 Nm of torque. Here's the thing, Harley have never built an adventure bike, and yet, for some reason, it feels so good. Everything just seems to work. I mean, there's little problems like this over here. There's got this plastic here, and it's a bit, I don't know, cheap and plasticky kind of thing. There's also other bits and pieces here that are just cheap and plasticky. But those are little cosmetic bits. Everything else seems very solid, very sturdy. I love this motor. It's just so fast revving. You just sort of hits and then whoop, it revs, off you go. So you kind of have a choice. You want lower revs, easy power, or lots of revs, off you go. It's also very comfortable. Love this seat. I just love it. It feels smaller and more compact than all the others. It gives me more sort of confidence. On a more philosophical note, it is the answer to a few problems. So the problem with the BMW is that you don't really feel special. It's like you're just fitting in with everyone else when you ride a GS. And when you're on a KTM, you have to kind of be good, otherwise people will sort of look at you funny. This Harley cures both those problems. I mean, it's a Harley, so if you're not Travis Pastrana, no one really cares. It's fine. Also, everywhere you go, people stop and look, and they go, "Is that a Harley?" I mean, out of all the adventure bikes, I feel the most special on this one. All that subjective stuff is good and well, but let's get more grown up and methodical about things to determine which is best. We have a long empty road, so let's do the most mature test available, a drag race. We start with the GS, and it's off to a bouncy start, but that's okay. It's fast off the line with all that torque, but we are not sure whether it will start losing out towards the end of the stretch. And it crosses the line with a time of 21.1 seconds and a dash speed of 208 kilometers per hour. Now the Harley steps into the ring, and it's off to a smooth start. But that motor needs a few revs before it starts hauling. That rev counter is not the easiest thing to see. Will the extra power overcome the torque? It crosses the line, and yes, it is slightly faster with a time of 20.9 seconds. It's also 10 kilometers per hour faster than the GS at a speed of 218 kilometers per hour. Now we move on to the big daddy, the KTM. And it's off to a growling start. It's got torque, it's got power, and it's got stability. But will all that translate into a fast time? Yes! 20 seconds dead, and a clock speed of 226 kilometers per hour. Oh, that's fast. Yeah, that's pretty quick. With the mature drag races out of the way, we now move on to the heart of any adventure bike, the ability to adventure off the tar road, and it's the Beamer up first. GS has this wonderfully neutral feel about it. It's like it's big motorbike, but when you're kind of on it like this, it doesn't feel that big, and when you stand, it feels kind of low and sort of nimble, easy to use. The BMW chassis does give a nurturing feel, good for riders of all talents, but that doesn't stop at just the chassis. Also how easy the power is to use. I mean, every time you go off-road, you feel that even more. It's just, wherever you are, open the throttle, change down a gear, open the throttle, whoa! See, that was easy. I shouldn't get credit for that, it was easy. Wouldn't mind a pair of knobblies, but then none of these bikes have got knobblies. I mean, these are the tires they'll come out with. The suspension, if you're riding hard, it's a little bit too soft, so it might get a bit bouncy sometimes. But when you're not riding hard, it's extra comfortable. I suspect comfort feels sort of a more of a priority than hitting big jumps. Moving on to perhaps the cardinal opposite of the BMW, the KTM. There we go, they're ready to race. That's a lot of grunt. The KTM makes use of WP suspension, a company it owns, and obviously it's all about ready to race. This thing feels, the BMW felt very neutral. This feels sort of harder, kind of stiffer. I expect people who like racing prefer it harder and stiffer. On the BMW, when you stand, you're kind of right over the front. This thing feels, the bars, I mean, a lot higher, so when you stand up here, it's slightly more sort of neutral. This power is ridiculous. It just is. I mean, you kind of have to, I thought it was just going to spin for nothing. You have to actually work at it a bit to get the rear to spin. It just seems to track so well. That I didn't expect. That I didn't expect at all. Becoming a pro off-road rider. Ah. Oh. Feels so good. It's all good and well that Harley have built a bike that's quick and cozy on the smoothness of the tar road. But will it do the same on the dirt? Off-road stuff, this bike feels smaller than the other two, which is sort of weird. Smaller and kind of more nimble, which is really odd because according to the piece of paper, this bike is the heaviest. Not by much, but you really don't feel it. This is the special model of the Pan America, so it has semi-active suspension, protective guards and plates, a center stand, and all sorts of other goods that add to the price tag, but also add to the ride, especially in the dirt. The other thing is that the sort of Jekyll and Hyde nature of this bike really comes out here in the off-road. Here, a little bit of throttle opening, low revs, the bike feels like nothing, it's smooth and calm, but as soon as you open more, it just leaps outwards, and I feel small, I feel confident, and I'm happy enough to sort of dance it around. It's not as easygoing and predictable as the BMW. It's not quite as angry as the KTM, but damn, it's good. And with all that out of the way, we get down to the big question. So now the main question, does this bike stand up to the current crop? Well, in some ways no, it hasn't quite got the bits of build quality, this little bits of plastic and that, not quite there. But in every other way, yeah. I mean, it's got a little bit of both. It's got sort of the naughtiness of the KTM, it's got the kind of usability of the BMW. It's all sort of there. I mean, if I were to choose one out of the three, personally I'd choose the KTM because, well, I developed until I was 15 years old and that's where it all stopped, in here at least. So I just want something that's fast and angry. If you want something that's more practical, you want a GS. If you want a mixture of the two, then you want this thing, you want this. Yeah, this bike does. It does mix it with the current crop of adventure bikes. And Harley's never built one of these before, especially in off-road. I mean, the closest they've got is like a dirt tracker. And they're not really the same, are they? Well done, Harley-Davidson. Well done, Harley-Davidson.
Great effort from Don testing 3 bikes on his lonesome. And while we're at it, a big thank you to Fast KTM and Rock Harley-Davidson who supplied 2 of the bikes. I've got to say, I agree completely with Don's choice of the KTM. Even though you might remember that a couple of months ago when I tested it, the Super Adventure did throw a few electrical gremlins into the mix with its semi-active suspension. Having said that, the BMW on this test didn't want to let Don open the fuel filler cap, which was an even more awkward crisis brought on by misbehaving electricity. And let's not leave out the Harley-Davidson that threw a complete electrical hissy fit and refused to start, forcing us to return it on the back of a bakkie when we first started this test. That's just for the record. All bikes were very quickly reset and then, to be fair, behaved perfectly. So, like Don, all that's left to say is Harley has defied expectations to a large degree and made an adventure bike that at the very least should be on your shortlist, especially if you're a bit wild at heart and don't like to follow the crowd. Back after this short break.